Hey guys, and welcome to a glorious guide on how Jesus is the new Moses. Now, why should you care about them being related? Well, all of this will be revealed and more. Now my colleagues here will show you how these two gentlemen are related and why you should care.
Alright guys, lesson 1. The shenanigans of religious authority. Have you ever had an evil ruler murder all your people's firstborn boys? Well, neither have I. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case for both Moses and Jesus. But hey,
they were only slaves.
Both of them had evil kings kill all the baby boys, just like how Kim Jong-un killed all the people who didn't cry hard enough at his father's funeral. For Moses, it was an unnamed pharaoh, but in historical views, it's highly likely that the pharaoh's name was Ahmose. And for Jesus, it was a king named Herod. Now, as each of their stories continued, it eventually led to both of them playing with the big boys of religion at the time period. Jesus gave the 8 woes of the Pharisees, and Moses quarreled with the Egyptian high priests. But both the Pharisees and the priests did not listen. Just like how Karen at the supermarket didn't listen when the cashier said the coupon code expired. If you guys don't know about what the 8 woes of the Pharisees were, it's basically a list of all Jesus' rants about how the Pharisees were wrong about religion. Remember how Moses went up the mountain and God gave him the 10 Commandments? Well, if you thought those are hard, Jesus upgraded them for $0 extra and no money down. Because they just got way more harder. My colleague will explain it to you.
Lesson 2. The words of the Lord. So you know how Moses wrote the 10 Commandments. Well, Jesus made them a lot harder to follow in the New Testament. Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, which goes into detail on how exactly he was going to commit even more sin than were to previously. So to put into perspective, if you act wrong, it's a sin. If you say anything wrong, it's a sin. And if you even think anything wrong, it might be as well as 2,000 crime/drama movies in city because you're living in sin. Both Moses and Jesus set extremely high expectations for their people. Except Jesus set a really high bar, just like as your favorite celebrity. To give an example, take a look at Matthew 6:38, verse 19. Before it was said in Exodus 21, chapter 24, that you could retaliate against anyone who attacks you, or revenge, to put it in simply, well, Jesus just wants you to forget all of that and let them hit you because he is God himself, and if you argue against him, then you're going straight to hell. No money back guarantee. What this all means is that Jesus can overrule anything that Moses says with a push of a button.
Okay, now, lesson 3, the miracles and connection of the Lord. This is a heavy hitter of the topic, so this is going to take a bit. Moses gave the people water, while Jesus gave them wine, because wine is better. Moses gave the people bread and quail for one day. Jesus gave an abundance of fish and bread. Jesus practically is a Moses on steroids. Whatever he does, something that's a light to Moses, he sticks a multiplier on it. Moses and Jesus both had to speak for their people's behalf because, let's face it, the Israelites were complete idiots. Seriously though, they broke almost every commandment written at the time. It's a wonder why God didn't abandon them entirely, but hey, I guess that's God for you. Anyway, Jesus shown time after time that he's more capable than Moses since he's God himself, and he's just not a messenger. For example, Jesus can resurrect people from the dead, while the most healing Moses ever did was carrying the Israelites from bite marks of the serpents. And never, wow, I'm kind of retarded. And even still, that wasn't really Moses. It was more like God just being merciful after he sinned against him. Jesus went up Moses and practically every skill imaginable. When Moses wanted something, he asked his dad. But when Jesus wanted something, he was going to do it better than Moses. Lesson 4. The people themselves. Moses and Jesus are both two of the most iconic people in the Bible, so we know a bunch about their character. To start off, Moses grew up practically in royalty, while Jesus worked at a young age because child labor is the future of the economy. This shows that a harder life Jesus had to live when he was young. Jesus was dirt poor, while Moses had to cheat the system to get pure luxury. Later on, Moses had killed a taskmaster, and he had to flee. He fled to Midian, where he meets God. Jesus has never killed anyone. Jesus has the power to change people with his words. Moses only had to rely on violence to solve problems. Jesus is more faithful because he is God. He is completely sinless. Jesus has never broken a commandment in his complete faith in God. But Moses had broken his faith in God multiple times, primarily when he hit the rock twice to unleash the water. Jesus states, and I quote, "You have little faith. Why are you so afraid?" Jesus actively gets annoyed at his apostles, and they will lose faith in him. Later on in his life, Jesus sacrificed himself for all humanity. Moses sacrificed the rest of his life to get the people to Israel. They are both heroes of the Jewish religion.
Lesson 5, the penultimate lesson, the followers of the religion. Moses had the Israelites, and Jesus had himself, the apostles, and the people who listened and lived by the religious words. Jesus is greater in his aspect because besides Judas, Jesus' followers stay far more loyal to him than Moses to the Israelites. Moses' people constantly commit acts of sin against God and then are punished for it. They repent, of course, but then they commit the same sins again. They also constantly blame Moses for their own wrongdoings. For example, in Numbers 21, the Israelites got discouraged about the fact that Moses brought them into the wilderness and murmured against him rather than admitting to their sin. Peter admitting to his sin about denying Jesus 3 times meant he truly felt sorrowful about it. This shows how Jesus had better and more loyal followers.
6. The last lesson. Relationship to God. Jesus is God, and God is Jesus. He is who he is. Numerous times it is heard throughout the text that he is God. And if you believe you get accepted into heaven. This is very different from Moses, as Moses was only friends with God and isn't actually him, but he is God's closest thing to a human friend. This proves Jesus is far greater than Moses, and being a friend to God doesn't have any power against actually being God.
Alright, so this is a summary of the video. Jesus is a new Moses because, like Moses, he's a very good teacher towards Christianity. He expands on the 10 Commandments, and both lead very similar lives. But Jesus is far greater than Moses, as he holds the true power of God. He's able to change the commandments and perform miracles which far exceed what Moses can perform. Jesus never had to worry about maintaining the relationship with God, because he is God, and he outmatches Moses in every single way. Thank you for your time, and hope you enjoyed the video.